What's going on? What's going on? Another episode of college basketball with Cloud9 Talk. This is yours truly, the one and only Coach Cloud with the cherry on top. Paul. Anyways, it's been kind of a bit of a slow week of college basketball, but we still got to cover it. I know we gotta change this platform. I miss Big Monday, Super Tuesday. Tuesday is always jam packed than Wednesdays, but Big Monday, Thursday, Friday had more games. It's just all these games at one time. It's kind of hard to watch and cover it. But it is what it is. Saturday, of course, it's gonna be jam packed. But put some games on Sunday, Thursday, spread the love. So I want to get into some news as far as, another G League player. Now, this guy played Charles Bianco. He played 2 years at Bama. Last year played there 22, 23. So 3 years ago. Played in the G League, played over 50 games. Now, this guy is eligible to play Saturday. Now he's suing the NCAA for eligibility. Now he's back. Playing Saturday versus Tennessee. So, this is gonna be an interesting game. We had the James Najee situation. We had the fake report of a two-way player trying to get to college. Then we got Dink Peck. He's avoiding two-way contracts and you don't want to explore college. So, this is an interesting time in college basketball right now. And hopefully, we get some more guidelines and structures on this. But it is what it is. Do whatever it takes to win at this junction in this era of basketball. Where guys are getting fired left and right. So, hopefully that fit, the James Najee fit is not really working out too well with Baylor. So, they got a lot of flack with that though. So it's the reason why he didn't play in the NBA as of right now. But man, Charles Bianco, man, he has a court hearing Tuesday, the 27th. So we'll see how that hearing goes. If they win, Bama win, will they forfeit the game? They lost, will forfeit, would forfeit as well. So a lot of moving parts in this situation. We're going to like Tuesday. We'll really see because that will set a whole wildfire. If God can come back to play college, if this guy does it. So we'll see how this goes. Stay tuned. It's news every other week or every 4 weeks with this. Guys playing in the G League, but this guy actually played in college, and now he's eligible. So like the NCAA not really trying to fight cases at all, and it's just it's tough for these high school kids to really make a mark on what they're trying to do as far as get this career going. College coaches, they want, basically pros now, guys that's ready now, that's mature, that been in a weight room, a college weight room a couple years, beards, they don't want a lot of baby face guys. But as you can see, this freshman class is one of the best in many, many years though. So, hopefully, this upcoming drive in 2026 NBA drive shows the world and then, just the whole landscape of basketball that high school kids still matter at the end of the day. So this is crazy news right here, and like hopefully they get this fixed, and just like this is hurting youth basketball overall. This is why I said in my last part that AAU is hurting the game overall because there's no structure in AAU. Now this is just AAU in college basketball, and it's leading to the pros. With this, just all this transferring, leaving teams when you want to, and you got Duke suing one of their football players. He was signed to leave to the end of this year, so December 31st, 26. So like you sign these contracts, you gotta stay obligated to what you do though. But we're gonna get into this episode right here is more about youth basketball as well though. So like this is the first part. The second part will be about college basketball. So we're gonna get into a little bit about this though. Wireless structure might create better players. Now all these games going on, all these trainers, it's kind of hurting the creativity of the game. It's kind of making it robotic. Everybody has the same moves. doing the same drills. Sometimes you just gotta just get out there, roll the ball out with your friends, and just play basketball, play off instinct, and just make quick reads off of that. It's cool, to work on skill development. Not don't get me wrong on that, but just going out there, just being creative and working on moves that you just came up on the fly. That's real basketball right there. You're not going to have to go on against managers and cones and chairs. Like that's cool. Don't get me wrong, it's a good simulation, but the intensity of you just going out there by yourself or just with a friend going 1-on-one, just working on your game with raw defense or just perfecting that move many times though that you trying to master. Not that someone else taught you that you seen on TV watching the game. And also more people have to watch the game more. That's how you get your creativity. I remember watching the All-Star game in 2005, seeing Vince Carter at his peak. He did a spin move. I never forget that spin move. I added that to my game and the rest was history though. It was just hard to stop, just like, simple stuff like that. Just watch the game. Be an artist out there. Like I remember Kyrie Irving was saying that basketball is a paintbrush. Use it as a canvas and then just get buckets out there, make good plays on both ends, defensively and obviously offensively as well though. So this is just another tip as far as just be creative out there. You gotta be think on the fly and just being creative. That's thinking on the fly right there. That will help you with late shot clock situation instead of just going to a reverting to a step back three or something like that. So it's just be creative. Just go out there and hoop. I'm not saying all to your trainer and coaches, but you gotta have a mind of your own too as well. Though you can't have too many voices in your head. And what I say, to my guys, man, just keep the game simple. Everything else will fall into place with that. So just keep that in mind. Next subject: who youth basketball really serves? Kids or businesses? Teams, circuits, trainers, and tournaments. Now this is a very, very tricky question right here. Who does the youth basketball really serve? Are it serving the kids or is it serving these tournaments, circuits, pockets? Some of these kids getting all these highlight tapes that costs. So you basically paying to get as much exposure as possible instead of just making it organic. Which, like I said, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do in this area to get your name out there. But just focus on getting better though, as far as a kid wise. So that's why I'll say, as a kid, if we playing all these games and kids just doing the same bad habits and mistakes, then I don't really think you should really just far as just train, work on the fundamentals. As far as in Europe, they play once or 2 games a week instead of 3 games a day. So like you playing over 6 days, 6 games in a span of 48 hours, and that's a lot on the body. And you're not getting better. You're not having really time to recover because, like I said, you're playing 2 to 3 games a day, and you just gotta work on your craft. That's not really taking away from time working on your craft and recovering. That's why guys is breaking down by the time they're 20, 22, 23, 24. Just they didn't play so many games playing travel ball, fall league, uh, pickup games, stuff like that. Just simple. You gotta recover, and sometimes you just gotta work in your game, and that keep you efficient and fresh. So far as from the kids side, now on the business side and teams, you got to pay to play, and that's just kind of hurting the game as well. I'm not saying everything got to be free. You got to pay. I'm a guy that I have to get paid for my time, but make sure that you actually not just looking for money grab and actually putting your heart and soul into these kids, and making sure you sending out the right message. But the kids is using you as a platform to expand their game. So hopefully, you're messing with the right programs that can get you in good situations as far as just teaching the game the right way, learning, and obviously exposure. Everybody want checks in the NIL now. That's fine and dandy, but you gotta make sure you making sure these kids is getting better, and also on off the court as well. Just having being good character guys. Picking up trash when they see it at the tournament. Cleaning up the bench, little stuff like that. People like to see though, because like I said, it just shows good character and good mannerisms as well. Because guys don't want to invest in a lot of money in guys that's gonna disrespect coaches, parents, staff, or got people that work at the custodian, stuff like that. That all that matters though. So just make sure you setting the tone as far as not just winning game, but making sure you developing young man and young woman as well. So that's all I gotta say though. Circuits, they're giving a good platform as far as exposure and making sure they have the right team. So like I said, I'm not gonna really say it really serves the circuits. Nike, Adidas, Puma, it's a lot of growing circuits though out here. So I think it's good they have it solidified, really just putting a bit structure for their circuit, for their independent circuits as far as, making sure their brands and players is getting seen by the right people so they can expand on to be pros later on. That's the goal. Everybody want to be pros, not just NIL. Keep that in mind though. And tournaments, like I said, it's a business. Business is business. Welcome to basketball in 2026. This is not basketball in the 2000s, 2010s, 1990s, 1980s, 1970s. This is a whole different landscape now. But people have more access to trainers, how to get better, more games. So people feel like the more games you play, the more exposure you get, which is it's true. But if you're not getting better, people seeing the same old, you're not really wasn't drawing attention to busting the eyes. That means you need to get back in the gym and lock in. Like I said, everybody needs to get better, and there's nothing wrong with getting better. Have being told no, you're not good enough right now. That's what make you see how much you love it, and just get that drive going. So that's all as far as I can say with that though. Does paying more actually get you recruited? No, not at all. If you got the talent, the grades, and just like I said, a good character person, hey, you're gonna get recruited for sure. Because somebody, you always gotta play hard at all times. You never know who's watching in the gym. Sometimes I like to just blend in the crowd, just see who playing ball. Just you never know who's watching. So always play hard at all times, and you don't really have to get paid to get to get recruited. That's just a sham to me. If you're good enough and you got the good production and numbers and doing the right things on the court that what coaches want to see, then I'll say this: yes, you don't need to get paid. You don't need to be paying services and all that to get paid. You're investing in your career as far as getting your name out there, working with the right people to get your name out there. So sometimes, like I said, sometimes I think it's a bit of a scam as far as you got to pay for the trainers and all that, and one, they can come up to 750. People got bills to pay too, though. So you might, if you getting paid to get recruited, make sure it's reasonable. Like I said, now if you a decent player with nice size, you don't need that. Now if you a guy that's under the radar, and you just need to get that exposure. Sometimes some camp paying for a camp will get you out there, or a lot of people do pay for G League tryouts. That's how they get on. You just never know though. So like I said, I'm not saying all the time, but like don't think that's just the only way to get you out there. Work on your game and get better. And parents too. Then you don't gotta. There's no rush to success. I know everybody's journey is different. So like I know social media and internet makes it more touchable and like oh if they doing it, I can do it too. It doesn't work like that for everybody. Trust me, I experienced myself. So just focus on the process, not the goals at the end of the day with this, especially in this landscape. You gotta be patient. Patience is everything. Speed can get you there, but patience and having a strategy and a nice system will, be more sustainable down the line. So just keep that in mind. Another question. Last quick question, the NIL trickle down and youth basketball next. Oh, it's already happening. It's been happening for years. People pay parents. The kid don't even know what's going on though. They just want to play hoop. Because at the end of the day, basketball is a kid's game that gets manipulated as the older you get. And if you got some height or got, you can put the ball in the basket, hey, anything can happen though, as far as in that. So you gotta be definitely mindful of who you get in business with. I just say just focus on getting better. The money will come once it comes though. Once it comes right away, you might get burnt out or complacent though. As far as like no, I already made it, and it goes to get to the three letters NBA. So everybody's not gonna get to the NBA as well. So NIL is cool. I know people need to pay their bills and all that, but it's a lot of vultures. So watch who you sign and watch who you get in bed with, watch who you working with, because you never know. They might be out there to get you as well though. Like I said, it is what it is though, as far as in that. And we're gonna do a little bit more episodes like this, 15 minutes, quick 20 about, just, how we can help youth basketball. That's the goal is, just to spread a good message as far as just how can I help the game. And if this is the way as podcast, just giving my message out as a consultant, former coach, former player as well on all levels, just working all levels of the game. That's what I'm here for, just to, give out the gospel. And like I said, if you don't listen, you don't listen. That's all right. Go over your head, that's okay. But just making sure, you just take the time to, just listen to what I'm saying from a professional that just wants to, help young guys. Because like I said, you're going against pros, overseas guys. You see Charles Bianco coming from the G League. He played 2 years of college, so that's what our kids, especially Americans, going against those. So make sure you got the good grades, being a good person, and be ready to hoop, man. You're going against grown men. It's, like I said, there's some dogs out here, and if you ain't ready, you won't get exposed. So just work on that weakness. Don't worry about the flash. Worry about production. Production over potential. Always remember that. Production over potential. I'm gonna say it again. Production over potential. That's how you get to where you want to be. Being productive, not worrying about the hype and all this. We're gonna do this, doing this and that. But be a hype beast. Be a workhorse. Cloud out. Like, share, subscribe on all platforms.